The galaxy had moved on from the days when humans roamed the stars. For 500,000 years, no one had heard from Earth or its people. Most alien species believed that humans had gone extinct long ago, wiped out by their own wars or lost to the vastness of space. Earth was just a legend now, a story told to young alien children, nothing more than a distant memory. But everything changed when the Zorathian Empire stumbled upon something that should not have existed. The Zorathians were a proud and powerful race, one of the leading forces in the galaxy. They controlled many star systems and had advanced technology that made them nearly unbeatable. One day, while exploring a distant and forgotten part of the galaxy, their scouts discovered an asteroid field that was different from anything they had seen before. Hidden deep within it was something strange, massive, dark ships that looked like they had been abandoned for ages. At first, the Zorathian scientists were excited. These ships seemed ancient, possibly from a long-lost civilization. They thought they could study the ships, learn from them, and maybe even use the technology to grow even more powerful. The fleet looked inactive, floating lifelessly among the asteroids. But something about the design of the ships felt familiar, even though none of the Zorathians could place where they had seen it before. The lead scientist, Dr. Zorak, decided to scan one of the ships. The moment their scans hit the ship, something unexpected happened. Lights flickered on across the entire fleet. The ships, which had been silent and still for thousands of years, suddenly powered up. The Zorathians were stunned. What they thought was a dead fleet was very much alive. "Shut down the scanners!" Dr. Zorak ordered, panic rising in his voice. But it was too late. The fleet was already awake. As the Zorathians watched in shock, the massive warships slowly turned their engines on. Their glowing lights illuminated the dark asteroid field, revealing massive human symbols on the sides of the ships. That's when it hit them. These were human warships. The Zorathians were standing in the presence of a long-forgotten fleet from Earth. "Impossible," whispered one of the engineers. "Humans are extinct." Dr. Zorak's mind raced as he tried to understand what was happening. The humans were supposed to be gone. How could their ships still be here? And more importantly, how could they still be functional after so many years? The Zorathians had encountered many ancient ships before, but nothing like this. These vessels weren't just intact, they were ready for battle. Before they could react, a powerful signal blasted out from one of the human ships. It was a message, transmitted in all directions, reaching across the galaxy. The Zorathians scrambled to understand the message, but the meaning was clear even without translation. "Earth has returned." Fear rippled through the Zorathian crew. They knew this message would reach every corner of the galaxy. The entire universe would soon know that humanity, once believed to be extinct, had somehow survived. And they weren't just alive. They were armed with a fleet that looked far more advanced than anything the Zorathians had ever seen. Dr. Zorak quickly ordered the fleet to retreat. But even as they turned their ships to leave, they knew it wouldn't be that easy. The human fleet had awakened, and it wasn't going to stay hidden any longer. As the Zorathians fled, one question echoed in their minds. What will Earth do now that it has returned? As the Zorathian ships sped away from the asteroid field, a deep sense of dread filled their minds. They had made a terrible mistake. Dr. Zorak stared at the view screen, watching as the human fleet fully came to life. The once dark warships were now glowing with energy, their engines thrumming with power that had not been seen for 500,000 years. "They're waking up," one of the crew whispered, eyes wide with fear. The Zorathian fleet had never encountered anything like this. Alien ships, old and new, were always predictable. But these human warships, there was something different about them. It wasn't just the advanced technology. There was a purpose in their movements, a cold precision that made the Zorathians feel like prey being watched by a hunter. Suddenly, a loud alert rang through the Zorathian ship. "They're locking onto us!" shouted the weapons officer. "We need to move now!" The Zorathians tried to activate their warp drives, hoping to escape before the human fleet could strike. But as they scrambled to flee, one of the human ships sent a warning shot, a bright beam of energy cutting through the darkness of space. It didn't hit any of the Zorathian ships, but the message was clear: you can't run. Dr. Zorak's heart pounded. "Open a channel to them! We need to talk before this gets worse." The communication officer quickly tried to establish a connection. "I'm getting nothing but silence, sir." The Zorathians were terrified. The human fleet wasn't responding to any of their attempts to communicate. It was as if the humans didn't want to talk. They only wanted to show their power. The fleet moved together in perfect sync, their formation tight and deadly. It wasn't a random awakening. They were preparing for battle. Dr. Zorak gritted his teeth. "We need to get out of here now! Full power to the engines!" The Zorathian ships roared to life, pushing their engines to the limit as they tried to escape. But no matter how fast they moved, the human fleet stayed right behind them, shadowing their every move. The Zorathians were fast, but these ancient human ships seemed faster, more efficient. Every maneuver the Zorathians made, the humans countered with ease. Then, without warning, the human fleet stopped chasing. For a brief moment, there was silence. The Zorathians slowed their engines, confused. Why had the humans stopped? Was it over? Had they somehow escaped? But just as hope began to rise, another signal was sent from the human ships. This one was different from the first. It wasn't just a warning. It was a message broadcast across the galaxy. The Zorathians could see it flashing on their screens. It was simple, chilling, and it sent a wave of fear through every crew member. "Earth has returned." The Zorathians' hearts sank. This message wasn't just for them, it was for everyone. Every star system, every alien empire would now know that Earth was back. And with this fleet, humanity wasn't just coming to explore. They were coming to take control. Dr. Zorak's mind raced. "What have we done?" he muttered, barely able to breathe. They had activated something ancient and dangerous. Now the whole galaxy was about to change. The human fleet stayed in formation, watching the Zorathian ships retreat. It was clear now. The humans had no interest in chasing them down. They had made their point. The Zorathians were no longer the most powerful force in the galaxy. That title now belonged to Earth. As the Zorathians finally escaped into warp space, they couldn't shake the fear that clung to their minds. The humans hadn't attacked them, not really, but that was even more terrifying. The humans didn't need to. Their fleet had shown enough power to send a clear message. The humans were back, and they were stronger than anyone had ever imagined. The message spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Earth has returned. Every alien empire, from the largest to the smallest, heard the same terrifying words. The humans were back, and they had a fleet so advanced that no one knew what to expect. On the capital planet of the Zorathian Empire, the news caused immediate panic. Emperor Zalor, the ruler of the Zorathians, paced back and forth in his throne room. His advisors were gathered around him, looking as nervous as he was. The humans had not been seen or heard from in 500,000 years, and now, suddenly, they had appeared with a fleet that could rival the strongest forces in the galaxy. "How did this happen?" Zalor growled. "How did we not know the humans had such power hidden away?" No one had an answer. The Zorathians were supposed to be the most advanced and powerful empire in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds and controlled the most advanced technology. But now they were afraid. The human fleet wasn't just ancient. It was more advanced than anything the Zorathians had. "We must prepare for war," Zalor finally said, his voice shaking slightly. "Gather our fleet. We cannot let Earth challenge our rule." His advisors quickly sent orders across the empire. Every ship in the Zorathian fleet was called back to the capital. Factories began producing weapons and armor at double speed. Soldiers were trained day and night, and scientists worked to upgrade the fleet's technology. But deep down, the Zorathians knew they were rushing to catch up with something far beyond their understanding. Meanwhile, in other parts of the galaxy, the reaction was much the same. Empires that had once ruled with confidence now felt small and vulnerable. The Dracovian Republic, another major force in the galaxy, held an emergency meeting in their High Council chambers. The Dracovians were a proud, warlike race, known for their massive warships and fierce soldiers. But when they saw the human fleet's message, even they hesitated. "We have always been ready for battle," said General Krath, the leader of the Dracovian military. "But this is different. These humans have weapons we have never seen before. We must proceed with caution." Some of the Dracovian council members wanted to attack the humans immediately, to show the galaxy that they were not afraid. But others warned against it, saying that fighting the humans without knowing their full power would be a death sentence. The Dracovians, like the Zorathians, began to prepare for the worst. Across the galaxy, smaller empires and independent worlds also reacted to the news. Some planets went into lockdown, shutting down all travel and communication to avoid drawing the humans' attention. Others sent out desperate messages, offering alliances to any empire willing to protect them from the humans. Fear gripped the galaxy, and no one knew what the humans would do next. In the Union of Free Planets, a loose group of independent worlds, President Lorna Auric held a meeting with her top officials. The Union was known for its peacekeeping efforts and diplomatic relations, but this situation was unlike anything they had ever faced. "We need to establish contact with the humans," Auric said. "If we can talk to them, maybe we can prevent a war." Her advisors nodded, but they were unsure. Would the humans even be willing to talk? Their fleet had sent a clear message. They were back, and they were ready for battle. No one had heard a word from them since. As the galaxy scrambled to prepare for what seemed like an inevitable conflict, one thing was certain: Earth had returned, and with it came a power that no one had been ready for. The humans had once been thought of as weak and extinct, but now they were the most feared force in the universe. And while the aliens panicked and prepared, the human fleet waited in silence, watching and planning their next move. The galaxy held its breath as the day of battle arrived. Despite the panic, fear, and last-minute preparations, no one could avoid the coming storm. The human fleet, silent and ominous, had finally moved from its position. It was heading straight toward the Zorathian Empire, the largest and most powerful force in the galaxy. In the heart of the Zorathian capital, Emperor Zaylor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion of Stars. Surrounding him were hundreds of warships, all armed and ready for battle. The Zorathians had gathered every piece of their fleet, from their oldest frigates to their newest dreadnoughts, all prepared to defend their empire. Zaylor's eyes were locked on the view screen in front of him. The human fleet was now within range, slowly advancing through the dark void of space. It was a terrifying sight. Hundreds of sleek, powerful ships, their designs strange and ancient, yet far more advanced than anything the galaxy had seen. They moved with a calm, calculated precision, showing no signs of fear or hesitation. "Prepare all weapons," Zaylor commanded, his voice firm but tense. "We will show these humans that the Zorathian Empire is not to be challenged." The Zorathian ships began charging their weapons. Massive energy cannons hummed to life, and missile bays opened, ready to unleash a storm of firepower. But even as the Zorathian fleet prepared, the human ships remained silent. They did not fire, they did not communicate. They just kept moving closer, their intentions unreadable. "Fire!" Zaylor shouted. The Zorathian fleet unleashed a barrage of energy beams and missiles. The dark space between the two fleets lit up with blinding light as the weapons soared toward the human ships. Explosions erupted across the battlefield, but when the dust settled, the human fleet was still there, untouched. Their shields had absorbed the attack effortlessly. Zaylor's eyes widened in shock. How is that possible? Before anyone could answer, the humans made their move. One by one, the ships of Earth's fleet powered up their weapons. They didn't fire immediately. Instead, they seemed to be calculating the perfect moment. And then, all at once, the human ships unleashed their power. Beams of energy, unlike anything the Zorathians had ever seen, shot out from the human fleet. The Zorathian ships didn't stand a chance. The first blast hit one of the Zorathian cruisers, and it disintegrated in an instant. The second shot tore through the shields of a dreadnought, turning the massive ship into debris within seconds. The Zorathian fleet was falling apart, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. On the Dominion of Stars, alarms blared as the human ships targeted Zaylor's flagship. "Shields at maximum!" the tactical officer shouted. "We can't take another hit!" Zaylor clenched his fists, watching as his once mighty fleet was torn apart. The Zorathians had always been the most powerful empire, feared by all. But now, they were nothing in the face of Earth's ancient and advanced fleet. "We can't win this," Zaylor muttered under his breath, a sense of hopelessness creeping over him. The human ships were relentless. They moved with deadly precision, taking out Zorathian ships one by one. Every Zorathian attack was met with a swift and overwhelming response. The battle, if it could even be called that, was a massacre. "Retreat!" Zaylor finally shouted. "All ships, retreat!" The remaining Zorathian ships tried to flee, but the humans weren't finished. As the Zorathian fleet attempted to escape, the human ships fired again, destroying any stragglers who couldn't warp away fast enough. In a matter of minutes, the battle was over. The Zorathian fleet had been decimated. Emperor Zaylor and a handful of survivors managed to escape into warp space, but they knew the truth. The Zorathian Empire was broken. As Zaylor sat in silence on his ship, watching the destruction of his once great fleet on the view screen, he realized something horrifying. The humans hadn't chased them. They had no need to. The message was clear. Earth had returned, and they were the most powerful force in the galaxy. The Zorathian Empire was shattered. Emperor Zaylor, once the most feared leader in the galaxy, sat in his private quarters, staring at the wreckage of his fleet displayed on the screen in front of him. His hands shook. He couldn't understand it. How had Earth, a planet forgotten for 500,000 years, become so powerful? He wasn't the only one asking that question. All across the galaxy, empires and planets were in shock. The battle had ended as quickly as it had begun, and the human fleet hadn't pursued the Zorathians. But now the galaxy was left with one pressing question. What would Earth do next? On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Cade watched as the remnants of the Zorathian fleet vanished into warp space. His expression remained calm. For him, this wasn't a victory. It was a statement. Humanity had been away for a long time, but now they were back. A voice crackled over the comm system. "Admiral, the Zorathian ships have fully retreated. What are your orders?" Admiral Cade leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing as he considered the galaxy beyond. Earth had no interest in conquest, but the galaxy needed to understand one thing: humanity would never be threatened again. "Send the message," Cade said. Across the human fleet, communication systems hummed to life. Every ship in the fleet transmitted the same message, a final warning sent out to every corner of the galaxy. The message reached the capitals of all the major empires, from the mighty Dracovians to the peaceful Union of Free Planets. It echoed through independent worlds, pirate colonies, and outposts in the farthest reaches of space. It was a simple message, but it sent chills down the spine of anyone who heard it. "We are Earth. We do not seek war, but we will defend our planet and our people with all our might. Any empire that threatens humanity will face the full power of our fleet. You have been warned." The message spread like a wildfire, and it didn't take long for panic to set in. On the capital planet of the Dracovian Republic, General Krath sat with his advisors, listening to Earth's warning. He had been preparing for war ever since news of Earth's fleet had reached his empire. But now, hearing the final message, he hesitated. "We can't win this," Krath muttered. "If the Zorathians couldn't defeat Earth's fleet, what chance do we have?" The Dracovian advisors, usually proud and eager for battle, looked uneasy. They had fought countless wars and won, but this was different. The power Earth had displayed was beyond anything they could imagine. And Earth didn't want to conquer, they just wanted peace, on their terms. "We must stand down," one advisor finally said. "Earth is not like the other empires. They've shown restraint. Let's not provoke them." Krath nodded, his usual fierce demeanor replaced with caution. For the first time in his career, he would not seek battle. Earth's warning was clear, and the Dracovians would not challenge it. Across the galaxy, other leaders came to the same conclusion. Earth had made their position known. They didn't want to rule, but they would not allow themselves to be ruled. The galaxy would have to adapt to this new reality. Earth was now the most powerful force in the universe, and no one dared challenge them. Back on Earth, Admiral Cade received reports from his officers. The message had been sent, and the galaxy had received it loud and clear. Empires were backing down, and for now, there would be peace. Cade looked out the window of his ship, down at the blue planet below. Earth had been through so much, but they had emerged stronger than ever. He knew the galaxy would never be the same, but he also knew that humanity would be safe, and that, in the end, was all that mattered. As the human fleet slowly returned to Earth's orbit, the stars seemed a little quieter. The galaxy had heard Earth's final warning, and the balance of power had shifted forever.